Hello, I'm Dylan.
And I'm Kiyan.
This is Trust Your Doctor, a podcast where we can't walk past a fez without putting it on, because this week we watched The Day of the Doctor.
Written by Steven Moffat.
Directed by Nick Horan.
And aired on November 23rd, 2013. Finally here.
You say that like this is the achievement the podcast has been building towards, and it's like all downhill from here.
Well, maybe it was, because this and the next episode were the most recent episodes when we started the podcast.
Yeah. I would argue some of the best Doctor Who is still ahead of us, though.
All right. I mean,
I would argue some of the worst Doctor Who is still ahead of us as well, though. So make of that what you will.
Well, some of the worst is behind us, too, so...
That's always been true, though. Ever since Edge of Destruction, it's always been, well, at least some of the worst is behind us. And then after the massacre, it was like, well, at least the worst is behind
the
us.
The worst ever is behind us. It's never going to get this bad again. Spiral Scratch gave it a run for its money, but...
We watched it, and from that point on, we knew that no matter how grueling Doctor Who would get, it would never be the massacre. Although, like you said, yeah, Spiral Scratch came pretty damn close. And that was even worse because you had to read it, and it was like I couldn't just zone out of the TV episode for the next 20 minutes. I had to put actual effort into reading that thing.
I guess. But yeah, Steven Moffat gets the honor and the privilege of
I don't know if I call it a privilege.
The 50th anniversary. I mean, it was really just luck that he stumbled into being the writer of the 50th anniversary.
I mean, I consider it a burden as well.
Yeah.
Because it's 50 years of history. Like, can you imagine the pressure he must have been under to get it right, so to speak?
Yeah, I can imagine that. I don't think I can, like, put myself in those shoes, but I can imagine, like...
Well, 50 years from now, when Trust Your Doctor's existed for 50 years.
I mean, 45 years from now.
And we'll task you with coming up with a 50th anniversary special for us. Then you can feel the wait. Just wait 45 years.
Yeah, I wonder if they'll celebrate the 50th anniversary of this episode, like, 45 years from now.
The 100th anniversary.
No, they won't it won't be the 100th anniversary,
the 50th anniversary of
Who.
Day of the Doctor.
Yeah, that's what it'll be.
All right. Apparently, Steven Moffat didn't give anybody access to copies of this script until it was done and they were ready to film. He apparently kept it under lock and key on his personal home computer.
Just like the Chamber Black Keep or whatever it was called. I forget what the little safe was. Not little safe, the like big storage area that's kept under lock and key in the story, even though I just watched this
The Black Archive.
Yeah, the Black Archive.
The Black Chamber safe. What is this? Harry Potter?
Well, they do walk by Coal Hill School. Interesting Harry Potter quote-unquote connection is like when they walked by Coal Hill School, I was like, I wonder...
Clara works at Coal Hill School,
yeah.
So...
I was thinking, man, what's the most famous, like, televised school in existence? And I thought about it for like 4 minutes. I was like, oh wait, obviously it's Hogwarts.
4 minutes.
Yeah.
Wow.
But we're not there yet.
No.
First we have to talk about the production that I didn't look up.
Well, that's okay, because actually, surprisingly, because Steven Moffat basically didn't give anyone copies of it, it's actually pretty straightforward. Moffat wrote it, and then he was like, we're going to film this bad boy. He came up with a version that had the Ninth Doctor, and then he alleged that it didn't work because the Ninth Doctor was, quote, new, unquote, in Rose, although I think Russell T came out and said at some point, like, no, the Ninth Doctor, like, wasn't designed to be, like, newly regenerated in Rose, even though everyone reads it that way. Yeah,
well, there are a lot of things that Steven Moffat has said that feel like excuses in hindsight, like we discussed last week how he felt that the Ninth Doctor's character didn't fit the what the War Doctor does in this episode, which
I would argue is like the Ninth Doctor of the 3 reboot Doctors we've gotten so far was the one who was like actually like pretty close in characterization to the War Doctor in this episode, and you can kind of see how that. Very easily, you could just transport Christopher Eccleston into the role, and it would work pretty well. You'd have to change some things.
You'd have to change the whole "didn't do this in the name of the Doctor" thing, which like comes to fruition in this episode in like a pretty satisfying way, I guess.
Yeah,
you have to change that, but
I still think he should have been the 8th Doctor. Still think that would have been.
Yeah, well, that's what it was. He said that Moffat, that is, said that the 8th Doctor's character didn't fit the War Doctor's character.
Yeah,
it wasn't Christopher Eccleston's doctor. He is actually in this. I think it's just a transplanted clip.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
It is.
Yeah.
All of the doctors that are in this have transplanted clips, except for William Hartnell's voice line, which was actually recorded by an impressionist. Because First Doctor never actually said Gallifrey on screen.
Yeah, and Tom Baker is actually in it himself. Which, if there's any classic Doctor...
uncredited role.
Yeah. I mean, if there's any classic Doctor that would be in this, it would be him.
Well, I know there's also that Five-ish Doctors reboot, which was made by Peter Davison, Colin Baker, and Sylvester McCoy. That's like... the plot of it is them trying to get a role in this episode. And I think at the end they, like, steal one of the three Daleks and operate Daleks on set. I don't think Moffat's ever confirmed that actually happened, although I think he, like, alluded to the fact that was just made up for that kind of little thing.
Do Doctor Who actors exist in the Doctor Who universe? Like, is Tom Baker... like a person in Doctor Who universe who just happens to look a lot like the Fourth Doctor?
Well,
in like an Ocean's 12 like style twist.
Well, so like none of the Doctors except for John Hurt you could make a case for, because the 12th Doctor, as we'll see in roughly a year's time relative to the episode that we've watched about the 2014 Christmas special, references the movie Alien, in which John Hurt stars. So you have to wonder what's going on.
He doesn't star in the movie. He's in it.
He's like the guy who the alien gestates inside him.
I know,
he's like,
but like,
I would argue, like one of the lead roles. That is more of an ensemble movie, but...
No, it's not. It's mostly Ripley.
Okay, but he's in the movie.
Yeah, he's in the movie. I wouldn't say he stars in it.
I'd say he stars in it.
That's you.
I feel like his name power is part of the reason people went to go see that movie.
He was the only famous person in that movie,
exactly.
like, when it came out.
But anyway, so yeah, Steven Moffat came up with this new Doctor idea. He also made a comment that was like, would it be weird if I had like the 45th Doctor played by like Johnny Depp show up in this episode? Like, could that be something that I could do? But he didn't go for that.
Where was The Rock in this? Come on.
And then he wrote that little mini episode for Paul McGann's 8th Doctor, regenerating into this Doctor that he created for this episode.
Yeah, the Night of the Doctor. I watched it. It was cool.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's kind of fun.
I also watched...
But that minisode and this episode combined actually officially established the unbroken line of regenerations from the 1st to the 11th, because we never saw the 8th regenerate to the 9th. So.
Okay.
That's just a side note.
There was also another mini episode / mini-sode.
Yeah.
I forget what it was called. It was like the
last day, I think.
Day.
Didn't watch that one.
And it's all from a first-person perspective. It's a Gallifreyan soldier, a group of Gallifreyan soldiers discovering that the Daleks have invaded.
Right.
They look up into the sky and they're like, see those, I forget what they're called, time trenches or something?
Yeah, time trenches.
No one's ever made it through 2 of those, and up there's 400 back to back, and then some Daleks make it through. So breaking their record. Well, maybe It's not their record, but the previous record was 1 time trench.
Well, now the record's like 400.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much the production. They kept it under lock and key. I know Moffat also said he didn't want to bring back Rose because he felt her story was done. But he wanted to bring back the Bad Wolf persona because he felt like Rose and Bad Wolf like represented the rebirth of Doctor Who, and he wanted to get them in there somehow.
Well, Rose and Bad Wolf together represent like the best period of Rose being on the show. Once the Bad Wolf storyline was done, it was all downhill for Rose.
Yeah. Yeah. I would argue it was all downhill for Rose. The instant she became Bad Wolf, everything was just downhill from there. But so Billy Piper agreed. It was like, yeah, Rose's story's done. Apparently, much like the DVDs going out early last week, the copy of Doctor Who magazine that announced that David Tennant and Billy Piper are coming back for this went out 5 days early. So that was a mistake. Also, apparently, neither David Tennant nor Matt Smith were on contract for this episode. Matt Smith's contract ran out with Time of the Doctor, and he was intending to leave the show at this point. And apparently, Moffat drafted, I don't know what, like how rigid or complete of a draft it was, a version where Clara was the only kind of main character.
Yeah, okay.
Because Jenna Coleman was the only actress / actor still on contract for this episode. like required to appear in this episode. So, but both Matt Smith and David Tennant readily agreed, and John Hurt apparently, they didn't audition anyone for the War Doctor. They just asked John Hurt, and he apparently like agreed with great speed. And that's that. That's production. I think this episode was set a record for the largest simulcast of a television program. It was shown simultaneously in, I think, 92 countries.
Yeah, it was something like that, 94 or something. It was shown in theaters around the world. It was a big deal. A big deal.
It was. It is still. A lot of people really like this episode.
I actually do remember when this came out. I mean, it was before I had even watched Doctor Who.
But it was like a big deal because it was 50 years and...
I only vaguely knew like even what Doctor Who was about at that point.
And I watched this pretty quickly after it came out, and like I enjoyed it, but without knowing a lot of the stuff about Doctor Who, I was like, a lot of it went over my head.
Yeah, there were a lot of references. I tried to keep track of them, but there were a lot.
Well, the very first one is right now off the top because it begins with the classic opening from the first Doctor.
Yeah, brings me back to 5 years ago. Just imagine, I mean, I was having nostalgia, but like just imagine if you've been watching this thing from the beginning. Yeah, I have nostalgia for 2013, as sad as that is. But like just imagine if you'd been watching this thing for 40 or 50 years.
Well, it even opens on the same opening shot as Unearthly Child, which is a policeman walking down a lane next to Coal Hill School. And then we cut to Clara, who...
And it's all in black and white for the initial like 20 or 30 seconds. Yeah.
To color.
Just like the show itself. Just kidding.
Yeah. Moffat said one more thing about production. Moffat said, I know Kiyan last week said Moffat was against recasting doctors, but Moffat apparently said in regards to this episode, he was like, if there was one doctor who's really going to come back, who I think would be interesting, would be the first doctor. He comes back, he's like, what have I become? This is an idea that Moffat would reuse later on. I think it's interesting to note that he thought of it like right now.
Well, like we mentioned before, all of his ideas, like you can trace back and like if you read his Usenet posts from like the early 90s, like all of what Doctor Who has become is in those posts. It's true. Just imagine like being in those forums and on those Usenet, I don't know, boards.
Imagine listening to our podcast and then 20 years from now when we're showrunner being like, oh yeah, I remember when they said they wanted The Rock to be the Doctor. Semi-retired wrestler The Rock. But yeah, so Clara now apparently is a teacher at Coal Hill. This is like a weird soft reboot of Clara's character that happens like right now because she's a teacher, an English teacher now, which as far as I know was never mentioned on the show before.
Well, this is a weird intro. I thought for sure that this episode was going to start right off where the last one ended.
Yeah, but I feel like this intro works because I think this episode was designed to work as a standalone episode.
Yeah, it definitely does.
But coming right off the heels of Name of the Doctor, it feels a little jarring, like we've missed something.
Right. But apparently we haven't because Clara gets a call from the Doctor.
And she hops on her motorbike and drives into the TARDIS.
Yeah, I guess the Doctor just parked like out in the middle of nowhere instead of like nearby.
Is this the same motorcycle from Bells of St. John?
Was that Clara's motorcycle? I can't remember.
No, that was the Doctor's motorcycle. I'm wondering if this motorcycle is the same as that one, though.
Yeah, I know. I mean, if it is, like, I guess he just gave it to her.
I guess.
Yeah, where?
And then I guess she got a motorcycle license.
Or not.
Or not. Clara breaking the rules.
Just like this episode breaks all the rules.
Does it really, though?
There is some, like, unresolved... The ending left kind of a bad taste in my mouth, but we're going to get there.
If it's about the Zygon Treaty, rest assured that that's not just been dropped. You can rest easy on that aspect,
leaves an even worse taste in my mouth.
Does it?
Yeah. Yep. Anyway, Clara makes it into the TARDIS.
And the TARDIS gets skylifted by a helicopter.
Right. The Doctor gets a call, and it's Kate Lethbridge Stewart.
Yeah.
Or Kate Stewart, not Wait. Oh, man.
I think the Doctor refers to her once by Lethbridge Stewart when he meets her, but after that, I think the only time it gets brought up again is when the Zygon mentions Alistair Gordon Lethbridge Stewart.
Yeah, but it's just Kate Stewart, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Because she drops the Lethbridge from her name.
Yeah, she mentioned that. Yeah.
Because I think when the doctor arrives, he's like, Kate Lethbridge Stewart. She's like, I dropped the Lethbridge. She's just Kate Stewart.
Yeah.
But she calls him, and she's like, where are you? We found the TARDIS. And he's like, I'm in the bloody TARDIS. She's like, oh, oops.
So they airlift the TARDIS into the National
Gallery.
Not into the National Gallery, just to the National Gallery.
Right.
And there's something that the Doctor needs to see. It's a painting called either Gallifrey Falls or No More.
Right. But the painting serves as the credentials for this letter that Kate gives to the Doctor from Queen Elizabeth
the First, this is something that's been brewing since the Shakespeare Code. Yeah. That was the first time that this relationship between the Doctor and Elizabeth was mentioned.
Little did the 10th Doctor know in that story that it would be the future version of him marrying Elizabeth I, because he thought...
Well, that was the past version of him from that story. Or no, it wasn't.
No,
it was
the
future. Yeah.
Because the 10th Doctor and this is traveling alone, so it's post-Donna leaving.
Yeah, this is a good opportunity to mention this. I think this is the most confusing Doctor Who episode ever. Like, I had such a hard time wrapping my mind around the things that were going on in this episode.
I warned you before we ended the Moffat era that this is going to be a thing.
And it's very fast-paced, too. It's like...
Yeah, this is really... I didn't even realize...
Before I could even comprehend what I had just seen, they were already moving on to something else that was even more confusing.
Gotta cram all those references in there for the fans.
Well, it wasn't even the references, it was just the time travel like stuff and all the different versions of the Doctor and the Zygons and keeping track of who was who, because not only is there time travel, there's shape-shifting and all this other weird stuff. And yeah. Oh, we should mention the references. So some of the ones that have already appeared are obviously Coal Hill School. There's a woman wearing a Fourth Doctor-like scarf who has
Osgood,
an inhaler.
She comes back.
Yeah, Osgood.
Don't forget her. She becomes the...
I thought she was going to be somehow related to Clara Oswald / Oswin.
Nah.
But apparently the writers on this show are just uncreative hacks. Just kidding.
Osgood.
And there are a couple more references that are going to be coming up.
Osgood is weird as a character conceptually because she's like a fan of the Doctor. But that'd be like me being a big fan of, like, I don't know, Barack Obama. And just like...
What, you're not a fan of Barack Obama?
No, but like to the point where I'm walking around in suits that are like handcrafted by the same tailor who made Obama suits. And then I start adopting like an Obama speech pattern where, we have to talk like this.
I found out that Obama is not only, he's not only the
cool guy.
Well, no, he's not only the like most followed political person on Facebook, which isn't surprising, but like if you add up the next three, which I believe are Donald Trump, the Queen of Jordan, whatever her name is, I forget, who's really popular for some reason, and I forget the third one. But if you add up those three, they like don't even match Obama's number of followers or whatever.
We should elect that man president.
We can't.
Round
FDR
3.
Messed it up for everyone.
FDR did what he had to.
Did he?
It wasn't really like, it wasn't like FDR was like, I'm going to run for 3 terms. It was like the party begging FDR to stay. And FDR being like,
Would George Washington have stayed?
No. But nobody listened to George Washington. George Washington's farewell address, he's like, make sure you guys don't fall into this political party thing, that's going to be a real big problem in the future.
It's not only that, like, you just look at all these quotes that, quotes from George Washington, or I guess quotes that we attribute to him. I don't know how.
Yeah, that's the thing. His farewell address was given in like a pub, and like the only record we have of it is like transcriptions of it, but it's like given like a pub. And
well, if you just look at all these quotes that are now attributed to him and that he probably said in some form or another, it's like all the things he warned us about is like the traps that we've fallen into or whatever.
George Washington was a smart guy. The reason why he was the first president.
Yeah, luck and
no,
and more luck.
Not really. The only president to have been elected unanimously by the Electoral College. Anyway, we're off topic. The Doctor goes in and he sees this painting, and Clara's like, wow, that's weird, it's 3D, and we see this kind of pan around and we see the 3D effect, and the Doctor's like, yeah, it's a Time Lord art piece. bigger on the inside.
A sliver of time trapped in a time cube, I think they call it, or memory cube, something like that.
Yeah.
It's just a frozen moment in time. It's kind of like a snow globe.
Yeah.
If snow globes were frozen moments in time and not just miniature pieces of plastic.
Not all snow globes are plastic.
Or miniature pieces of whatever they're made out of.
Some of them can be gloss.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. As Kiyan's intimately aware. I don't think anybody who's listened to this podcast even knows that.
No, I'm not going to tell the story either.
So they take the Doctor down into this kind of... Well, actually, we get this flashback now.
Yeah, a lot of this is told...
Because it's a painting of the fall of Arcadia, which is the final day of the Time War.
Yeah, a lot of this is told via flashbacks, and I think this really works because of the way it all comes together. Very confusing
but then the flashbacks
in the moment.
Become the present.
Right, it's very confusing, but I like it.
I like it too. There's a lot of fan wank in this episode, but you know what? For the one episode that it happens, I love it. So, but the War Doctor basically gets the moment. The one reference that's not in this episode that I really thought they would do, because they say the moment like every other sentence, is a reference to the Fourth Doctor's final lines.
It's been prepared for.
Yeah, but that never shows up.
No, it's too obvious. Too obvious.
It's conspicuous by its absence, though.
Exactly. So by not saying it, they're pointing to it. Can't get
Disagree.
out. Well, they can't get out of it. I mean, if they're going to bring up the word moment, they're calling it to mind whether they want to or not.
I guess. The only reason why Steven Moffat used the moment is because the Doctor references the moment in the End of Time, the Russell T episode. So, reference the weapon being named the moment.
I don't even remember that. But anyway, we get some shots of Gallifrey like just being decimated by the Daleks.
Not that it wasn't decimated like every other time we saw it on a classic show. Not that it didn't look like a bombed-out nuclear wasteland already.
And the doctor's there. John Hurt's doctor is there, the War Doctor.
And he steals this... We didn't explain the Night of the Doctor prequel, but whatever. He steals the moment, which is apparently on Gallifrey, they have the Rassilon archive.
It was the Omega archive.
The Omega archive, yeah.
And that's exactly what I thought. I was like, this, if this were the classic show, it would be the Rassilon archive. I mean, there's something in this of like...
Rassilon's been in the reboot too.
He has, but like, if this were the classic show, it would have been the freaking like, the moment of Rassilon, or...
The tomb of Rassilon.
But no, it's named after... the number 2 Time Lord, Omega.
Omega wasn't even a Time Lord. He was just a godlike being that they exiled to another universe and then tried to flood Amsterdam that one time.
He didn't try to flood it. I don't know why we keep saying that. He was trying to use antimatter to like destroy the universe. And that just somehow turned into, I think I turned it into, like, he was just trying to flood Amsterdam. Place is already half underwater to begin with.
The most evil of plans. I'm trying to flood Venice. Wait, Venice is already flooded? But yeah, they have the... Well, I guess it's a reference to the Hand of Omega, because that was a thing that they introduced.
Didn't Rassilon have a hand as well?
Yeah, everybody had a hand.
You get a hand. You get a hand. Everybody gets a disembodied, severed hand as part of...
My platform is running for president. Everybody will get a disembodied hand.
Yeah, it'll be one of your hands. You know, it'll get cut off
we'll
and we'll present...
one of your hands.
You get it back. No loss, except the loss of blood and tissue. But you gain that scar tissue back.
To do things that require 2 hands. Basically single-handedly kills the sports of like cricket, baseball,
like pretty much all of them, like maybe except soccer. Anyway, the Daleks keep chanting "Seek, Locate, Destroy," which is a great episode of Blake 7.
Yeah,
I'm glad to see that the Daleks are fans of Blake 7.
Really hope that was an intentional reference to Blake 7.
I don't think it. I mean, "Seek, Locate, Destroy" is like Blake 7 didn't invent that phrase.
I guess. But the War Doctor runs over some Daleks with his TARDIS, and
And
walks to a farmhouse to use the moment.
He blasts the words "no more" into a wall with a gun.
Yeah. And he flies to a farmhouse to use the moment.
Right. Well, he parks far away, as the moment mentions, and he sort of just trudges there through the deserts of Gallifrey.
So like all of Gallifrey.
Yeah. As far as we've seen. I don't get how... I guess obviously it's another planet, so they don't have to follow Earth rules or whatever, but like, there's desert, and then it goes directly into like snow-capped mountains. Well, which I guess you can see that in some places in the world.
I guess. But then the 11th Doctor takes him down into the archive, and there's like dust or sand all over, and the Doctor asks Osgood to analyze it.
Yeah, well, we should mention that, and we kind of did, that the moment looks like Billie Piper.
Like Bad Wolf.
Yeah, and while I was watching this, because it's basically Billie Piper in like tattered clothing, and she's acting very strange, and I thought they were going to turn Rose into a River-like character where it's like her last meeting of the Doctor is his first meeting with her.
No.
But no, they don't do that, thankfully. But the War Doctor, that is, receives a fez from like a time portal.
And that's the last we see of him for the next 20 minutes, because now that the 11th Doctor indicates that the 10th Doctor married Elizabeth I, so we flash back to that instead.
Yeah, this is after they sort of go down into the archives. Some guy in the background, or you think in the background, gets a mysterious phone call about the painting.
Yeah. He just says, okay, I'll move it to there.
There's a moment with Osgood where the Doctor tells her to go do a bunch of stuff. And I don't know, I kind of liked this sort of semi-characterization here, because it feels like Osgood has all these skills that she's never been able to put to use because Kate Stewart isn't putting them to use or whatever. And the Doctor's just like, go do all these things that like you were trained for.
Unit's been like...
Unit sucks.
Yeah, because in the reboot, Unit's been like either preemptively like beaten to every alien seen by Torchwood, or like the Doctor will show up and fix everything before Unit even shows up.
Or they've like been doing their jobs well, like as a covert organization, unlike classic Unit that just
that was supposed to be covert, but the Brigadier would like drive in on his Jeep and be like, "All right, Unit's here, boys."
Not even his Jeep, his tank. Remember Robot? They brought in tanks. I think it was tanks.
Okay, but to be fair, in Robot, there was a freaking giant robot walking through the village.
Unit failed completely there.
That was on the Doctor, though. The Doctor went to try to stop the robot. Unit. And then he, like, met the creator and then, like, caused the robot to grow massive.
The Doctor's part of Unit.
Yeah, he's technically still on the payroll, according to this episode.
All the deaths caused by the Doctor? Yeah, Unit, he's responsible.
I mean, I think it's one of those situations where like the views of the people who work at this company don't represent the company as a whole. But the 10th Doctor's with Elizabeth I and asks her to marry him, and she's like, okay. And then he's like, ha, the real Elizabeth would never say that. You're a Zygon. And the horse transforms into a Zygon. It's like, oh, it was the horse.
Yes, because the Doctor has this, the 10th Doctor. I feel like we need to point out which Doctor this is. Yeah. Although, I mean, people listening to this have probably already watched the episode.
Like back when we watched the 3 Doctors and we were like confusing the 2nd and the 3rd Doctor the whole way through. And then the 5 Doctors
and the first was just like on a screen. But no, the 10th Doctor has created this device that picks up like the DNA of shapeshifters.
Yeah.
But it was the horse. And that's how I mean, I liked this.
Yeah.
This sort of revelation of like, oh, that's how the 10th Doctor and Elizabeth got married. Or how he proposed. We see their marriage later on.
Yeah, very awkward and poorly attended marriage.
Well, I mean, they're not just going to invite the Zygon hordes, right?
But they could invite the public. This is the Queen getting married. It's kind of a big deal, I would think.
Yeah, did they invite people to royal weddings, or is that... I don't know. It's something I'd have to look up. It's like we're ancient.
Ancient. It's not really ancient. It's the 1500s.
It's early modern, quote unquote. Definitely just a term made up to get English students interested in Shakespeare.
The late pre-modern era. The late Cretaceous.
Yeah, these might as well be dinosaurs. Silurians, even. I'm pretty sure all those terms like early modern and like late or early modern or whatever it was were actually just made up to get like English students who like liked modernism interested in like older things. Pretty sure that's where they come from.
And then there's like then it stopped being modern and became postmodern, and then there's contemporary, and it's like, but all of these terms refer to like the time now.
Yeah, and plus a lot of these things are like modernism. It's not like it's a period, but it's also like a movement. So if you're in that period, you're not necessarily part of the movement.
Yeah, modernism was a poor name because modern means like
now.
Yeah. Poor name for a movement.
Also, like, modernism in literature is not the same period as modernism in like painting.
And like everything else. Great.
Yeah. Where does TV have like the same?
I don't know
names?
if TV has like a modernism.
I don't know. It's too new,
period,
but
yeah.
But like one of these days it will.
Is too new. There's definitely like in movies, I'd say there's
periods.
Yeah.
There are periods in TV. I just don't think they're then named.
The gray period, the color period. But then the time portal opens because the Zygon turns into Elizabeth and the Doctor doesn't know which is which, and the time portal opens and the Fez comes flying through. And then the 11th Doctor sees the time portal open in his time period, and he's like, no, not now. And he's like, I see now. This is where I come in.
Yeah, because we didn't mention the 11th Doctor walked by a Fez that was in a glass cabinet and put it on. Yeah,
and then there's also the thing that the Doctor had to see was that there were more Gallifreyan-style paintings, and there's shattered glass all over the floor, and the Doctor indicates that the glass shattered outward, which means that there was something in the painting and came out, and Kate confirms this because she shows them a picture of the painting on her iPad.
Well, was it an iPad? They don't have the Apple logo. You
can tell by the form and the shape that it was an iPad. Because that's the one thing that Apple has going for it is its like distinctive iconography.
Maybe it wasn't supposed to be an iPad like in universe, and there was like, well, all we have is this iPad, so this will have to double as like another tab. No, I'm just kidding.
Possibly.
No, I mean, it really doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't. But then the 11th Doctor jumps through the time pool and he pops out with the 10th Doctor. We have some witty bants here where the 10th Doctor's like, who are you? And the 11th Doctor's like, I'm you. He's like, it's kind of weird seeing you from the outside. Never done that before.
Yeah, the 11th Doctor calls the 10th Doctor like skinny and like a matchstick man. Yeah. I was like,
have you looked in the mirror, my friend?
It hasn't really changed.
He says the 10th Doctor's wearing sand shoes, and he's like, they're not sand shoes. And later on, the War Doctor calls them sand shoes as well.
Yeah, I didn't get that. Like, are Converse usually really called sand shoes?
I don't have my finger on the pulse of the sneakerhead fandom, if I'm being honest.
Sneakerhead?
That's an actual term. I'm not making that one up.
Sneaker punk. Where's my sneaker punk literature?
You could be the first.
Sneaker punk movies.
You could be the first. I would imagine sneaker punk is just basically like those heavily 90s skater influenced movies.
Yeah.
Kind of what I would think sneaker punk would look like.
Yeah, I would be interested in that. I mean, I don't skate or anything, but like I really like that period and that like it's not a movement,
grunge
but like
aesthetic.
Yeah. And like
that art style.
Yeah. God. I'm not even going to explain that.
So then
a lot of inside jokes in this episode, just like there were in The Day of the Doctor.
We got to get a reference to Tagana in here somewhere. There it is.
Might as well mention the upstart Silurian while we're at it.
Genkaquillian. Oh, we did mention how the massacre sucks, so we at least got that one in there.
What else? Nissa! There you go!
Nissa!
Nissa's actually in this, in a picture.
Nissa is in a picture. So is Chameleon! Wait, we're going to get there. Because I want to say some things about that. But the 11th Doctor's talking with Clara and Kate wanders off to go look for a file. And she makes a reference here to the unit dating controversy, where like the dates of all the unit episodes in the 70s are like they made them, they were like supposed to be contemporary, but then like the Brigadier's like retirement age like completely throws that whole timeline out of whack. So she makes a reference. She's like, "Oh yeah, the file will be in the 70s or 80s depending on the dating protocol." And then the Doctor throws the Fez back because he wants to know if he can go back. but the Fez doesn't come through, and then...
Yeah, it's a one-way street, these time portals.
Well, so then there's a reference to reversing the polarity, because they try to reverse the polarity using the sonic screwdriver, but then both of them are reversing the polarity, so it's just reversing it back. And then the War Doctor jumps through, and he's like, what's going on? I'm looking for the Doctor. And they're like, well, you're in good company, because here we are. He's like, oh, God. Oh, God. This is what I become. There's
references. There's something I want to touch on at the end, is like the War Doctor is much less silly than the other two Doctors. Yeah. And I kind of make fun of that in the show. They make fun of how silly they've made the show.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
The 12th Doctor is, no spoilers, but more of a return to the classic style, less funny, even 9th Doctor-esque Doctor.
Yeah. That's something, again, that I'm going to probably want to touch on for a minute, at least at the end.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, they all had sonic screwdrivers.
This is where I started getting, like, pretty confused. Just keeping track of, like, okay, the 11th Doctor, 10th Doctor is fairly easy. But, like, just where the War Doctor is and what he knows. And then, like, at the end, they come at you with a revelation of, like, oh, that's why he forgot everything. And, yeah, it was just...
But, in the classic... that revelation... in the classic show...
Like, the only way that this works.
Well, in the classic show, it was always, like, when the Doctors encounter each other, they never remembered the events until the latest incarnation had been through the course of events. Like, that was the whole Blinovitch limitation effect on the Doctor, was that he couldn't remember what happened. That was why in like the 3 Doctors, the third Doctor couldn't just be like, I've seen this all before, let me handle it, because he couldn't, until he had been through the events, he couldn't remember the perspectives of the first and second Doctors.
Yeah, there's a moment in this at the end, I'll just touch on it now because we're already talking about it, where the 10th Doctor's like, well, might as well tell me what happens in my future, and the 11th Doctor gives some cryptic information about Trenzalore and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it's like, what if he was just like, all right, so you're going to meet this woman named Amy.
All right, so here's what happens. You're going to meet this woman named Amy. Oh, by the way, don't fall in love with her. She's got a fiance, and he just lays down everything. Tells the 10th Doctor how to avoid all of his mistakes.
Like that video where it's I guess a parody of Genesis of the Daleks, where Davros goes, "You will tell me about every Dalek defeat," and the 4th Doctor's just like, "All right, here you go." And he lays them all out in the end. Davros is just like, "Oh, shoot."
But they get thrown in the Tower of London, and the 11th Doctor's plan is to write the activation codes for...
Because they get caught, we didn't mention, they get caught by Elizabeth's guards, / the Zygons guards, because
we don't know which Elizabeth this is.
Well, it's implied to be the Zygon at this point.
Yeah.
That was another kind of reference, I think, is like the Zygons have been in England for 500 years or whatever.
The Zygons coming back alone is just a reference, because they haven't been back since Terror of the Zygons, so...
Yeah, but even within that, there was like, we've been waiting here in England for 500, like 1,000 years. We've been here the entire time, yeah.
Harry Sullivan.
Oh, God.
What was a Harry Sullivan episode? I think that was the episode Harry Sullivan left in.
I don't even remember, because I don't even, like... When I think back to the episodes that Harry Sullivan was in, he's just not a part of my memory.
Yeah,
as if he'd been like he was in Genesis. He was in Genesis of the Daleks. Yet when I think of that story, I don't think of Harry Sullivan at all.
Me neither. So then what happens is
I'm having a hard time keeping track of this.
Well, so the War Doctor
order for these doctors
comes up with this idea to try and use the sonic on the wood door by implanting it as a subroutine, which will then finish by the time it gets to the 11th Doctor's sonic. And obviously, like, out of universe, the reason why this is here is to set up the Doctor's calculations to save Gallifrey at the end.
Yeah, well, all right, let's just go back a minute, because they have some intense discussion about, like, what they're going to become, because the War Doctor doesn't know what he's going to do.
Yeah, because the point of this is like, let me show you the man you'll become if you push this button and wipe out.
It's almost like, what's that movie,
A Wonderful Life?
Yeah,
or
Wonderful
like
Life.
That.
Yep, it's a Wonderful Life.
Okay.
Yeah, so they can't see the moment.
Yeah.
But the War Doctor can, and he can hear her and stuff like that.
And this is where we get that idea that the 11th Doctor is the one who forgets, because the War Doctor asks if they ever counted how many children were on Gallifrey, And the
10th Doctor remembers 11th Doctor.
Well, the 11th Doctor says it doesn't matter, but then the 10th Doctor says it was 2.3 billion, I think.
Yeah, but then the rest of this episode kind of shows you that, like, okay, the 11th Doctor does actually... I mean, he necessarily remembers. He has to remember this.
The 11th Doctor is shown to be someone who's, like... The 10th and 11th Doctor clearly handled this pain and trauma in different ways, where the 10th Doctor, like, would bring it up at every opportunity, whereas the 11th Doctor is just, like, repressing his feelings about it.
But, like, also there's the... Like, in a way, he can't repress them. Like, it always keeps coming back.
Well, yeah, he's just, like, repressing it outward. Like, he's not going to Clara, like, hey, by the way, I killed a bunch of people, right? He's like...
the 9th Doctor.
The 9th Doctor was like, yeah, I killed the Time Lords. Freaking Nestine, kill them too.
I mean, he wasn't so gung-ho about it. But that. I mean, we're joking about it, but that is, like, one of the first things he told Rose is, like, are you sure you want to travel with me? Like, I murdered, like, millions.
Billions, even.
But yeah,
then they have the sonic screwdriver thing. And, watching the episode, I was like, yeah, this makes sense. Looking back on it now on the rewatch, I'm like, this doesn't make sense. Because the moment claims that it's the same sonic screwdriver, and I'm like, it's, like, pretty distinctly not, because...
She says it's the same, but with a different case.
But even still, the 10th Doctor's sonic screwdriver blows up in the 11th hour, so it's just gone. And then the 11th Doctor's screwdriver gets eaten by the shark in A Christmas Carol, so it's also gone. Like, the 11th Doctor's destroyed the screwdriver multiple times.
Hey, we don't know how Time Lord software works. Maybe it's
guess.
Maybe it's, like, disseminated through the air. Nano machines. Yeah, there's a line from the War Doctor in this right before he's about to regenerate, which I felt was a little meta, where he goes, "Suppose it makes sense, wearing a bit thin." He's talking about himself, but, like, it's like, is he talking about the episode itself?
It's supposed to apparently be a reference to the first Doctor's final lines, which are something along the lines of, like, this body's wearing pretty thin.
Yeah, I don't remember that.
Neither do I. Because he barely shows up in his final episode.
Yeah.
He shows up at the end to die. So then the doors just open. But
Clara
we need to go back a little bit.
Yeah.
Because like
this episode does to you.
Because, like, contemporaneously with this, like, happening at the same time, but in present day, Clara...
But this all started in the past. It's like, oh my God.
Kate realizes what the Doctor's trying to do, so she takes Clara to the Tower of London in present day, which is where, I guess, UNIT keeps the most dangerous alien artifacts they can find. It's called the Black Archive.
I mean, they mentioned at the beginning that UNIT is operating out of the Tower of London.
Right. So they go there, and apparently it's TARDIS-proof, and they have memory inhibitors.
Yeah, they keep it under lock and key, like traditional, like, lock and key, but to prevent the Doctor from opening it with the sonic screwdriver. But, like, the sonic screwdriver can open metal locks.
Yeah, they should have made it out of
wood.
Like wood. Kate makes a reference to the guy who's working there, and he's like, "Yep, first day on the job." It's like he's been here for 12 years. I'm like, wait, that kind of sucks. That's pretty dark.
This was really dark. I mean, it's brushed off. It's just like, it's not. It's kind of brought back later.
Kind of played off as a devices.
Joke. Yeah, it's definitely played as a joke here.
But, like, I would always imagine, like, what if this guy had, like, a wife and kids and he comes home every day and he's like, hello? Like, thinking it's his first day at work. Yeah. It's, like, first day home with his wife, and his wife's, like,
this
losing
is some,
her
like,
mind because she doesn't understand why.
Stuff.
Like, that would suck.
Very dark.
How does he handle, like, life? I don't know, like, the Master getting elected Prime Minister? Like, does he come to work, like, not knowing who the Prime Minister is?
I think it's just work-related things. But maybe not. I don't know. They don't ever go into it. Obviously, the memory device can affect you in different ways. It can make you forget, like, what species you are.
Well, that's the sonic screwdriver hacking the memory device, so...
Okay.
There's, like, not necessarily a function of the memory device. But we do find out that Clara's been there before. This is when we find out that UNIT has, like, every one of the Doctor's companions they've, like, brought in for questioning, because they have this just, like, board, this cork board with, like, every companion of the Doctor on it.
Yeah, Tegan's on there.
But even the first shot of this board is, like, Clara looking at a picture of herself and a picture of Chameleon front and center. The first shot of this board is a picture of Chameleon front and center. And I was like, Chameleon!
Did they even go to Earth with Chameleon? Well, except in Planet of Fire. Well, Planet of Fire. Planet of Fire. No,
Planet of Fire wasn't.
Yeah, Planet of Fire was where Chameleon died.
I don't think I even went to Earth with Chameleon, though. Not on screen, anyway.
Not on screen, but he was there.
Guess
He was in the TARDIS.
That, like, off screen, they brought Chameleon to Earth, and that UNIT knew about Chameleon, kidnapped Chameleon.
Tell me, Chameleon was on Earth in the Middle Ages, but that doesn't count.
Yeah, UNIT didn't exist in the Middle Ages. But anyway, she tells Clara that they have a vortex manipulator that was bequeathed to them by Captain Jack. And that's what the
after one of his many deaths, or before one of his many deaths, and after many of his deaths, probably.
And that's what the Doctor's giving them the activation code for, so they can go back and rescue him.
Yeah, and that's what the 11th Doctor has been chiseling onto the pillar in the prison cell. Which
really hoping that it's going to survive the next 500 years.
It just gets covered up by someone else's graffiti.
Like a house, the Queen brings in someone to like redesign the Tower of London in like 2001. He just plasters over it. Yeah, I don't need this. But then
when architecture destroys your country.
Kate indicates that she's a Zygon, as is Osgood and the scientist dude.
Yeah, I didn't see this coming. This was a pretty big shock to me.
Plot twist.
Yeah, it was cool. It was
Kate Stewart is kind of acting off. She starts acting off when she comes back from picking up the file that she leaves to go get, and I think that's supposed to kind of be a clue.
I think that's when it happens. I mean, it's not explicit. It could have happened before the story even started, but I'm pretty sure it's
and it's revealed that dust that the Doctor picked up on is there because the statues that used to be in this room were all smashed, and the Zygons were hiding in that room as the statues, because they're underneath cloth covers.
Yeah. What's weird, the Doctor calls it stone dust.
Yeah.
Which is like...
True.
Sand, yeah. But sand is just mini stones, so... Could have just called it sand.
But he didn't.
We have words for these things, Doctor.
We don't need to use words. Why use one word when many will do?
Clara... is able to use the vortex manipulator to make it out of there. And that's how she opens the door.
Yes. So all that lead up to her opening the door. Because it wasn't locked, apparently. And then Queen Elizabeth's like, I wanted to see if you would escape. This is such a good moment,
honestly. Like, this is... I
don't know. The Doctor says something like, we are geniuses because of the sonic screwdriver solution, and the door just opens and Clara's like, it was unlocked the whole time.
It's like you have 3 doctors in a room, and they come up with this convoluted plan to get out, and they don't even bother to check if the door's open. It's such a great moment. I think that's probably my favorite part of the episode now that I look back on it.
It's a good part. My favorite part was when all 13 of them show up at the end. Just a good moment. But yeah, Elizabeth's like, just wanted to see if you would escape. And she tells them the whole plan that they're putting the Zygons into the painting. And this is when it was real, definitively the Zygons came out of the painting. Yeah,
and there's another funny moment where the 10th Doctor doesn't believe it's the real Elizabeth. And he like insults her.
He's like, your breath smells terrible and your eyes are too far apart. And she's like, well, I am the real Elizabeth because I killed the fake one. And he's like, let me add some context to my previous statements.
Which he doesn't get a chance to do because this is when she explains the painting thing.
And then
which is that the Zygons had been hiding in the paintings and that they're planning on invading... Or I guess this is a fringe group who broke off from the Loch Ness Zygons, right? I mean,
I don't want to microanalyze the Zygon timeline of all things.
I'm sure there was some sort of internal conflict where one group was like, we need to hide in these paintings, guys. Like, we need to wait until Earth is ready for us because that's their entire deal. Is that Earth is too primitive and they need to wait until it's
more technologically advanced.
But then these other Zygons were like, there's a lake right there. Like, we could just hide at the bottom of this lake. People will never
Okay, but the ones who hit at the bottom of the lake, the 4th Doctor showed up and completely buggered their plans, so... Yeah, the ones in the painting took 3 doctors to stop, so...
In their dying moments, they're like, damn, we should have hidden those paintings.
Yeah.
But instead we chose the lake.
Meanwhile, in the Black Archive, the real Kate Stewart and Osgood and the scientist have come in and they've activated... Apparently, they have a nuke underneath the Tower of London.
Yeah. It's activated by Kate Stewart's voice.
And only Kate Stewart's voice. So Kate Stewart is like, activates this nuke and then changes her mind, but she gets like stabbed or something. Like, tough luck, London. Or like if a Zygon...
I thought you were saying that actually happened. I was like, wait, what are you talking about?
If she decides to like detonate the nuke, but then changes her mind, but before she can voice activate it, she just gets stabbed. It's like, well, tough luck, London. The only person who can deactivate this is dead now. But apparently it's so that none of the alien technology falls into the wrong hands. Earlier, Kate made a humorous comment about, can you imagine Americans with time travel? And so she activates the nuke and locks down the Black Archive. And that's where the Black Archive is when the Doctor decides they need to go to the Black Archive.
Yeah, but the Zygon obviously can control the thing as well because it has access to Kate Stewart's voice. So it's just like, detonate, countermand, detonate, countermand. They're going back and forth, and this is when the Doctors...
countdown is going down, so...
This is when the Doctors get into the TARDIS. And the Doctor is married to Elizabeth in a little mini scene.
Yeah. And then, there's this humorous, like, sort of meta comment, I think, from Steven Moffat here, because the War Doctor watches Elizabeth kiss the 10th Doctor, and he's like, this has happened a lot in the future, and the 11th Doctor goes, it's going to start happening for you pretty soon. But yeah, and then it's revealed how the Doctor kept in contact with the Brigadier after he left with a space-time telegram.
Right. Which makes sense.
Which is apparently stored in the unit archive.
Yeah. The Doctor has always, or not always, but ever since the 2005 series started, been converting people's phones into space-time phones, so I guess he did so with the Brig as well.
And he communicates with Kate. But before that, we see the TARDIS flip through the 3 desktop themes. Because this is the 10th Doctor's TARDIS that they get into. But it flips to the War Doctor's theme because he's in the TARDIS, and then it flips to the 11th Doctor's. I actually really like the War Doctor's version of the TARDIS. It's like pretty similar to the 10th Doctor's, but it's a lot brighter. The 11th Doctor makes a reference to this because he says that the 10th Doctor's going through his grunge phase, but he'll grow out of it soon.
Sneaker punk.
And he's got round things on the wall. It's kind of like a hybrid between the like 5th Doctor's console room and the 10th Doctor's almost. With the bright white round things on the wall, but like the 10th Doctor's like actual console.
I guess.
But then it settles on the 11th, and they try to get into the archive, but it's TARDIS proof. But then they come up with this plan to do what the Zygons did and bust through the painting. Which then calls back to the scene earlier where the guy got the phone call, and it's revealed to be the 11th Doctor calling him, telling him to move the painting into the Black Archive.
Oh my god.
So they busted into the Black Archive.
I mean, now that we're discussing it, it's actually not that, like, confusing. I'm parsing it, but like when you're in the moment, when you're watching this.
When you're in the moment.
I didn't do that on purpose. But when you're there, man, like, you're just like, what is happening? But they're there. They're in the archive.
Then the 10th and the 11th Doctor basically say that they've done this once before and they're not going to let Kate make the same mistake that they did. Which is basically killing a small number of people to save much larger.
Small, quote-unquote. It's like killing millions to save billions.
Yeah, the Doctor killed billions to save quadrillions.
Like more than that, probably.
But in order to make them hash it out, they use the memory inhibitor to make them forget if they're Zygon or human. So they negotiate. So they negotiate the most perfect treaty with safeguards on both sides.
And there's a interesting shot where the 11th and 10th Doctors both like sit down in a chair, cross their legs, put their feet up on the table and whatever. It was interesting.
And then there's a shot where Osgood figures out which of the two of them is the Zygon because the real Osgood has asthma problems.
Well, yeah, because the real Osgood
Zygon stole the inhaler.
Yeah, but then got it back. She got it back, didn't she?
She gets it back in this scene, which is
wasn't it the other way around? She the Zygon attack. My impression of this was the Zygon attacks her, takes the inhaler, and she gets it back, doesn't she? And then this is the real Zygon, or this is the real Osgood handing it to the Zygon one. That's why I don't
think she gets the inhaler back.
I don't remember. I could swear that she does though, but I guess we'll have to look it up.
I don't think so. Because she does trip the other Osgood, but I don't think she gets the inhaler back from the Zygon.
Yeah, I don't know.
But they figure it out. But basically the point of the scene is that they know which is which.
Yeah.
And they, like, decide not to reveal it.
Yeah, so now they negotiate, and no, I'm just kidding. They completely drop this from the episode.
So there's a lingering shot here when the doctors come out of the painting where we see a hand grab the side of the painting, kind of like it's coming out of the painting. And later on, it's kind of implied who this is, but I'm not going to say.
I didn't even notice that hand.
It's a very quick shot, and because Clara's in the shot as well, coming out of the painting, and there's a hand that's like pretty clearly not Clara's grabbing the side of the painting, coming out of the painting.
I mean, we talked about this last week, I think, or a couple weeks ago. Is like, that's what this show does. That's what the new series of Doctor Who does. It, like, I mean, this one's obviously more explicitly done, but it'll be like, remember that half a second shot that we showed you 4 years ago? That was actually important.
Well, when you have a show about time travel.
So Clara goes over and talks to the War Doctor, and he is starting to come to terms with, like, and I really like how this is done, because this is like, what was I going to say? Because, I mean, Kate Stewart, obviously, as we mentioned before, has to make, like, the same decision. But then, like, with the 11th and 10th Doctor, like, being in on the decision as well, or, like, accepting that they have to push this button, which is what this is all leading up to. I guess I could have mentioned this later, is, like, what was I going to say about this? I was going to say something deep, trust me. Just kidding.
Well, this scene is, like, I think is really good because Clara sits down and says, like, oh, the doctor, like, really regrets doing what he did. And then the War Doctor counters with, well, yes, but can you imagine how many lives his regret has saved? Like, he's tried so long to make up for killing all the Time Lords. Like, can you imagine how many lives he saved because I pushed this button? Right.
Like, over the years, and there's also this thing, this is what I was going to say, of, like, if he didn't, because there's a line earlier where one of the doctors, I forget which one, says, like, we made this mistake in the past so that you don't, so we're going to stop you from making it now. So there's this idea that, like, if the doctor hadn't made this mistake, then, like, he wouldn't have tried to stop Kate Stewart, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Which I really liked. I liked that setup.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously at the end that's why this end kind of left a bad taste in my mouth of, like, he didn't actually make that mistake, but then, like, his memories were wiped. So
that's, like, I was going to mention this at the end, but I guess now is an opportune
I mean, we're already talking time. It's all out of order, just like the episode itself.
Well, like, there's a lot of, like, I guess, disagreement within, I suppose, the fandom over exactly what this episode seems to say, how the Time War ended. My interpretation of it is that
they're still in the painting.
Well, yes, but my interpretation of it is that the Doctor has always saved Gallifrey, but thought that he didn't. But there are some people who contend that in this episode, the Doctor directly changes the outcome, and that the 9th and 10th Doctor
it's not that.
Actually did destroy Gallifrey, but now in this episode we see them change that.
No, it's every Steven Moffat written episode goes by, like, the rules of all it's already all happened.
Yeah, and that's, like, my interpretation of the event as well. But
yeah,
now that basically happens now as the moment breaks the time lock and allows the 10th and 11th Doctor's TARDIS. There's this really, I think, like, really impactful line here where the moment is talking with the War Doctor and says, like, you know that wheezing and groaning noise that the TARDIS makes and how it brings hope to everybody in the universe? He's like, yeah, I like to think it brings hope. And she's like, it brings hope to even you, Doctor. And then he hears the TARDIS in the background. And I just thought that was a really well done moment.
Yeah. This is back in the shed thing on Gallifrey, by the way. Because the War Doctor goes back. Clara sort of looks away for a moment. And then when she looks back, he's gone.
And they arrive, and the War Doctor's like, what are you doing here? And they're like, you shouldn't have to make this decision alone. Like,
yeah, and that's
you
also
shouldn't have to bear this pain alone.
Right, and that's also their acceptance of, like, all right, we can't repress this. It's like, you know, the War Doctor is a doctor as well.
Yeah.
What we did in the past is still, like, a part of us.
Yeah, it's basically them accepting, because now the 11th Doctor says to the War Doctor, he says, you know, for so long I've hidden you away, but you were the most doctorish of all of us. You were the Doctor on the day that you couldn't get it right.
I think Tom Baker was a little bit more doctor. No, I'm just kidding.
And then this is when also the 11th Doctor tells Clara that he chose, well, all the doctors say this, that they chose the name the Doctor when he ran away because it means never cruel or cowardly or unkind, and to never run away. Then Clara cries because she didn't imagine the 11th Doctor being the one to destroy all those kids on Gallifrey. He's like, well, surprise, I'm about to push a button. He just slams a button down and just... No, that's actually not what happens.
No, they come up with this plan. The War Doctor does, and then it's like, it's in the mind
the 10th
of the
Doctor
11th.
picks up on it, and the 11th Doctor picks up on it too.
Which is that they're going to seal Gallifrey away in a time cube.
Yeah.
Time cube? I think it was called Time Cube.
The name's not relevant.
The paintings.
And this is when we get this pretty cool scene where we see all the Doctors. Well, it's initially just 10, 11, and the War Doctor. Fun fact, during the 11th Doctor scenes, on some of them, if you look on the TARDIS console, you can see Matt Smith's script sitting right there in full view of the camera.
Wow, nice. Oh, we didn't mention that the reason they're trying to do this is because there are tons of Dalek warships surrounding the planet, and they're about to fire, so if they just steal the planet away, they'll fire on themselves. Yeah,
and they'll look like they destroyed each other, basically.
Yeah.
So the 10th and 11th and War Doctors basically explain this plan. They're like, it's never going to work. The calculations would take hundreds of years. And the 11th Doctor's like, yes, but you might say I've been running them for a very long time. Then the first Doctor pops out and is like, I'm called the War Council of Gallifrey. I don't know why he became southern there. Howdy, partner. It's me, the Doctor.
Gunfighters, one of 2 Wild West Doctor Who episodes.
And we see all the Doctors show up.
Mercy, including the 12th Doctor.
Yeah, this was a cameo that nobody knew was coming, and I think was really cleverly included.
It's a blink and you miss it thing too.
Yeah, but I think it's really cool, kind of a call forward.
You can bet that as soon as this thing showed up, the internet was flooded with all right, it's Peter Capaldi.
They announced it before this episode.
Oh, okay. I didn't know.
But apparently Steven Moffat wrote that scene though without knowing who he was going to cast yet. But he wrote in that cameo from the 12th Doctor.
Yeah. And this is where we get the one little clip of Christopher Eccleston
saying, "And now for my next trick." And we get a couple of other lines. We get the 7th Doctor saying, "The boundaries that divide one universe from another," which was a line that when we watched that episode, I picked up on because I remembered it from this episode, and I remembered making a funny note, I heard that line before, but I don't remember what episode it was from. I actually think all the Doctor's lines are from episodes except for the first Doctor's, which, like I said, was an impressionist who did a really good job, by the way. So they saved Gallifrey.
They saved Gallifrey. It's sealed in a painting, and then we sort of cut to the aftermath of this.
Yeah, we see the 3 Doctors in the National Museum, where now the painting is on display.
The War Doctor, I think it's the War Doctor, says, "Guess we'll never really know if it worked."
Yeah, and then he leaves.
Yeah.
And he starts regenerating
Yeah.
into Christopher Eccleston.
Yeah.
Although because of likeness issues, they don't really show the full regeneration. You see it start to change. And he makes a funny joke about the ears being less conspicuous this time, which is a reference to, in Rose, I think, the 9th Doctor's like, wow, I got really big ears.
This is where his line, "Suppose it makes sense wearing a bit thin," takes place. And then this is where this other thing that we touched on earlier takes place, of the 10th Doctor asking the 11th Doctor for spoilers. And he talks about Trenzalore. The 10th Doctor is like, "That should have never happened."
And then he's like, "I don't want to go." And the 11th Doctor's like, haha, he says that a lot. And then the most surprising cameo of all.
The museum curator.
Clara's like, well, I'll give you some time with the painting. And then she's like, "Oh, there was an old man looking for you. I think it's the curator." And this old man, you hear this voice, and you're like, "Wait a minute, could it be?" And yeah, it's Tom Baker in the most acting he's ever done on this entire show.
Oh man, that's true. But this scene was this scene was very meta as well.
The scene was meta for a lot of reasons.
Am I me, or are you me? Am I you?
But the instant that Clara says "Oh, there's a museum curator looking for you," you should already pick up on the meta-ness of it, because halfway through this episode, when the Doctor goes into the archive of paintings that should never be shown to the public for whatever reason, he says, "I could be a museum curator. Maybe I'll retire and become a museum curator. I could be the best curator."
Well, even the curator now is like, "You did become a curator, or did you? Are you me?"
And then the Doctor's like, "I'd recognize that face anyway." He's like, "Yeah, you would." And he's like, "Maybe in the future you'll find yourself revisiting a few faces, but just the old favorites, you know?
Yeah,
or maybe you won't."
Or he's like, "Or it's in the past, or is it the future? You don't know, and I'm just going to talk in riddles." He's just like a senile old man. Not even the curator. That wasn't even the curator.
Just some guy who walked into the... I mean, there's also this kind of like visual cue too, that there's like round things on the wall. I don't know if you picked up on that as well, which is supposed to evoke the TARDIS of the era. A lot of people are partial to the theory that this is like a way future incarnation of the Doctor. And I think there's a comic that like confirms that this is a way future incarnation of the Doctor, but...
It's just the fourth Doctor in old makeup, and his memories are erased.
I'm partial to the theory that it doesn't really matter, that I just like this weird cryptic figure who shows up.
It could be anyone. You know, use your imagination.
The 11th Doctor at one point in the conversation gives him a little wink that I had never picked up on ever.
Yep.
But he indicates that the title of the painting isn't actually Gallifrey Falls or No More, it's Gallifrey Falls No More. And the 11th Doctor's like, oh, so it worked then. The curator's like, yep. And he's like, so what are you going to do now? He's like, I'm going to go look for it. And he's like, well, maybe you do, or maybe you don't. I can't tell you. I wouldn't know. I can only tell you what I would do if I were you, except maybe I was you, or maybe you will be me, or you're me. Who knows? Touches his nose. And then he walks off. He just walks off after that statement.
Yeah. No, I mean, we're making fun of it because it's very easy to make fun of this scene, but I really like this scene.
No, I did too.
Yeah. Tom Baker looks pretty good. You know, I guess it's really only in the past like 5 or 6 years that he's really like let himself go.
Well, also there's his television, so there's makeup and costuming, and then that's how it ends with this. And then it actually ends with this weird scene that I don't like that much, where the Doctor's like, Clara asks if I dream. I always dream.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't mind it, but like this could have been better if that was an actual line in a previous episode, or like a conversation they had of like, do Time Lords dream?
Do Time Lords dream of
electric
jeeps?
Electric jeeps.
And that's how it ends.
Yeah, that's how it ends.
I actually really like this episode.
I do as well, despite, or maybe because of all the confusing stuff. I mean, I believe this is what I believe based on not having watched next week's episode, but I believe next week's episode has something to do with this one, or it's like a follow-up to it in some way. But part of this is resolved. The Zygon stuff is, I think, resolved.
This is pretty much a standalone episode.
Yeah, which I think it works like it should be.
We do come back upon the Zygon Treaty, and that's not a dangling thread that's just left. Like, what happened to the Zygons? We do find that out, although not next week.
It's like a classic era style cliffhanger resolution where it's just like the first 2 seconds, like, oh yeah, that Zygon Treaty went pretty well, huh?
It's a lot more involved than that. But as a standalone episode, I think it works really well. I think as a episode in the season, I think it works really well as well. Even though I guess technically the season ended with Time of the Doctor, but they are it's like a 3-part overarching sort of thing for the end of the season. I think this is a really clever episode as well for the 50th anniversary, because he could have easily just been like, let's bring back every surviving Doctor possible.
Right.
Which I think would have been difficult, if not impossible, to pull off.
Yeah, they could have Spider-Man 3'd it, but they didn't. Surprisingly showing some restraint, I guess.
Yeah, there's a lot of restraint shown, but also just I think like plot-wise it's really clever in that we get the Doctor facing a situation that he's faced before again with the Zygons and Kate Stewart. Like that kind of subplot being a parallel to the Time War or major plot, I guess.
Playing into it.
And also like how they introduce like the sonic screwdriver, like, oh, it's the same case, but different points in its lifetime thing, so that at the end when they just come out of nowhere with the TARDISes have been calculating for years thing, it's not like, well, it doesn't make sense because it's been introduced in the episode before. I don't know, I just think it's a really well put together, well produced, well written episode.
Yeah, I do as well.
It doesn't go overboard with its like... It doesn't
overboard. Bring the angels back is like the thing.
Well, yeah, it doesn't do the thing where it's like it goes overboard with something or another, right? Like it could have gone overboard with continuity references, and there are a lot, but they're all really subtle. They're not like...
Yeah, sure.
It's not like the Five Doctors, which was just... the Five Doctors, which was just like, let's see 10 minutes of every Doctor for...
But I mean, even that could have had even more.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. It's like we got things that okay, whatever. I mean, yeah, all right, sure. The Five Doctors was a little overboard, sure.
This is just my favorite episode of this like kind of surrounding area.
Yeah, it is. It's really good. It is really good. I mean, I thought for sure that the Angels were good. Well, I didn't actually. I thought that, and then 2 seconds later, it was like, oh wait, the Angels haven't come back since Angels Take Manhattan, so they can't be in this. But I thought for sure when they were like, it was they moved out of the paintings and the image is the thing itself, and there were statues and like stone dust or whatever it was.
Maybe Moffat was just playing you for the fool.
Yeah.
Maybe. The one thing I do want to talk about is how I really wish that was the Eighth Doctor, not the War Doctor in this. And I know I'm not alone in this because I know 42 to Doomsday, at least one of the, I think it was Martin, agrees with me. But I actually think it would have been more effective in showing the effects, I guess, of the Time War. Because a lot of why Steven Moffat was like, I can't see the Eighth Doctor ending the Time War is because like the Eighth Doctor was, of all the Doctors, excepting maybe the Fifth, like the most happy-go-lucky, like always sees the best, is the most optimistic Doctor. And I think that that alone would have made it more effective to show just like the brutality of the Time War, which is supposedly the war to end all wars. Like I think it would have been really interesting to see this Doctor who is like always sees the best or the most optimistic just finally broken by the Time War.
Yeah, I mean, like we kind of touched on earlier, I think that really could have worked, and it would have been pretty cool to have Paul McGann as this War Doctor figure.
And to see him interact with the 10th and 11th Doctors as well.
Right. And we did get the Night of the Doctor, which we didn't explain, but it's Paul McGann regenerating, and it's sort of him dealing with the Sister of the Flame of all people.
Yeah, the Sister of Khan coming back.
But at the same time, I thought the War Doctor thing, and it's like him accepting the name of the Doctor and realizing that he's the Doctor too, and the other Doctors realizing that he's the Doctor and they can't repress him and stuff like that was good. Which would have needed to have been rewritten at least partially if this were either the 9th or the 8th Doctor.
I mean, but like in my mind, if it was the 8th, he's like, he doesn't want to do this because it's not like in the name of the Doctor. And the 10th and 11th Doctor go, well, you could, like, doing this doesn't betray your values. You're just like, this war has to end kind of thing.
They would have had to do something where it's like, I used to be called because they called him the Doctor in the movie, so he would have had to be like, I used to be called the Doctor, but not anymore, or something like that.
I mean, it could just be him, like, accepting that he has to become a warrior or less like a Doctor to fight in this war, right?
Yep.
It could just be like the 8th Doctor, like a big character moment for the 8th Doctor was like maybe he renounces the name the Doctor, like formally.
Yeah, that's what they would have. That's what they would have to do.
And then at the end, they could be like, like you may have renounced it in name, but you never really like stopped acting like the Doctor, right? And I think that would have worked really well, and I'm really bummed that it didn't happen. But what we got is really good as well, so I'm not really complaining.
Yeah. One minor thing I want to touch on is the sort of like not irony, but like there's some sort of like ironic stuff / humor like going on in this of like, look how silly we've made the show, because the War Doctor points it out multiple times of like, timey-wimey, like why are you guys acting like children? Like what's going on? And I don't know, it feels strange that when a lot of movies and TV shows and stuff do this, of like, haha, look how silly we are, and we know we're being silly, so it's better in some way, or like, I don't know. Just like, it feels like a more sincere, like timey-wimey is stupid, in my opinion, but like, doing it sincerely feels somehow better than like, pointing out, like, look how silly and weird it is, haha.
Yeah, but I think, like, in this episode, it was sincere, because it was showing the difference between, like, the War Doctor and the result of what he did, I guess.
But I mean, just even acknowledging that the phrase itself is stupid is like, look at this stupid thing we made up. Isn't it dumb? And, like, yeah, I don't know. It's just a minor nitpick.
I don't know.
Like, you can read it in different ways.
I mean, also it's like a critique of like how the 10th and 11th Doctor like dealt with this traumatic event was to like just act totally normal and almost like overcompensate in the other direction for it, right? I don't know.
Sure.
It's kind of how I read it.
Yeah.
Might also just be Steven Moffat priming the audience of what he's about to hit them with the 12th Doctor, where he's boy. We'll go back, boys. I don't know. Anyway, that's
that's all I have to say.
That's all I have to say on this. If you'd like to email us, you can reach us at thedoctor@decorativevegetable.com. Questions, comments, concerns, angry rants, love letters, your thoughts on the 50th anniversary special of Doctor Who. You can find us on Apple Podcasts and Google Play at Trust Your Doctor. Be sure to leave a rating if you like the show. You can find us on YouTube at Decorative Vegetable.
Check us out on Facebook, Trust Your Doctor. Like us on Facebook. Also check us on Twitter at TYD Podcast and follow us on Twitter. And next time we're watching The Time of the Doctor. But until then, the end.